Rooster Creek Quilting in Holt Summit, Missouri is your one-stop shop for all your quilting needs and more. Their specialties include great customer rapport to assist you with finding that perfect fabric, notion, pattern, pre-cuts, and embroidery supplies. Rooster Creek also offers professional long-arm quilting services and classes and much more. Don't wait for the rooster to crow. Visit Rooster Creek Quilting at Holt Summit Plaza, Holt Summit, Missouri. It's a great place to go for all your quilting needs.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Quilting Inside and Out, where you get the scoop on the world of quilting. Sponsored by Rooster Creek Company of Holt Summit, Missouri. Today is April 18th in the beautiful city, the capital city of Missouri, Jefferson City, in a nice, finally warm air that we're having. So I invite you to stay with us during the show. We've got a great show today. We are interviewing two great guests who will share their window into their life of quilting and some great, with great information and experiences. In the first half hour of the show, we meet Miss Toby Lishko of Beaufort, Missouri. And in the second half hour, we meet Miss Josette Berry of Osage Beach, Missouri. Both will be sharing their quilting experiences and hope to inspire you along the way with their thoughts and shared experiences. I would like to first, say the Spring to Paducah Show 2018, I want to say congratulations going out to Shirley Gear of Houstonia, Missouri, taking second place with My Town and Country Quilt 2. That's a station machine quilted, sponsored by the Sew-A-Lot, the Husqvarna Viking. So congratulations to Shirley Greer. And now if you'll turn with me and welcome Miss Toby Lishko. It's great to have you as a guest here on Quilting Inside and Out. I've been looking forward to it for months now, it seems like.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm happy you invited me. I'm thrilled.
Well, thank you for coming. If I may call you Toby by your first name, please tell us a little bit about you and those highlights of your life that best describe Toby Lishko.
Oh, well, I usually start off by telling people that I come from a line of sewers. Nobody's quilted in my family. I'm the first quilter. But my mother was a home ec teacher and her father was a tailor. So I have sewing in my genes. And but I started crafting at a very early age. I started doing a little knitting and crocheting when I was 6 or 7. When I learned how to read, I kind of taught myself. And I've done crafts, all kinds of crafts. Each craft I do for a couple years, and I get a little bored, and so I go on to the next craft. So I've done knitting and crocheting and macrame and needlepoint and crewel work, and you name it, I've done it.
Well, now it's when we try to learn a little bit about Toby, and not your personal life that you don't want to share, but we all are inspired by family or what have you. Did you have any shout outs to family or anyone that you would like to recognize? Or
my mom and dad. My dad is turning 98 this year, and my mom turned 93. So and they're celebrating their 70th anniversary this month.
Super.
I'm happy that they're both still around.
Yes.
And
so
my
good.
husband, who's a Vietnam veteran, Mike, and I have 2 dogs and 5 cats.
Well, we all can identify with that just about, but that's nice, and it's great that you're blessed to have mom and dad still with you, and I want to say hi to them also. Welcome to Quilting Inside and Out. I bet Mom can recognize some of these techniques that we'll be talking about throughout this show. Well, thanks for sharing that personal information. Well, now can you tell us how you was really first inspired to get into quilting, and what really keeps you interested and inspired to continue on?
Well, it started as a hobby when I have two kids, when my kids were in school. And I had done all these, I had sewn clothes since I was 11, and I thought, well, it was something new I wanted to try, and since I knew how to sew, I thought, well, quilting would just be a step above that. Mm-hmm. So I took a couple quilting classes, and I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun process. It was relaxing. My background is in special education. I have a master's in school psychology, and I was doing both jobs while I was towards the end of my teaching career.
Oh, I see.
And so I decided to finally retire after 25 years of education and devote the last part of my life to my quilting career and teaching quilting. I love to teach quilting to people around the country and kind of inspire them to do their own little thing.
Excellent. Now, so you spoke of education, and one of our educational persons for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And now, what district was that?
I worked with Special School District in St. Louis.
In St. Louis, mm-hmm. I see.
Yes,
So
I grew up in St. Louis, and my husband and I moved around the country, but both our families are from St. Louis, so we ended up back in St. Louis, and this is where I live in Beaufort now, and that's where my roots are, that's where my studio is, and that's where I get my inspiration.
And I drove through the Highway 50 last weekend. I was on the road going to St. Louis for an audition for a hospital commercial. And I drove through Beaufort, and I actually thought about it. I don't know if you felt the vibes or not. But
I didn't. But it's like I said, it started out as a career, and then I just started doing my own little designs and entering contests and shows and stuff. And one thing led to another, and I started working with fabric companies and magazines.
And we're going to talk about that extensively in the second part here. Well, meeting so many people who are enjoying the world, the art of quilting, there seems to be a need to assist our viewers in defining the word quilter. You know, it can be used so many ways as nouns and or the verb. So we look at the noun quilter, one who makes any part of a quilt, a quilter, one who cuts, lays out, and sews the fabric pieces together, also called a piecer, and one who attaches a binder to a quilt top, a noun, who does all the above, a noun, and then we have the verb, basically who hands or machine quilts. Mm-hmm. I'm a quilter, meaning I use the machine.
I'm quilting is the verb, you know, I'm doing quilting.
So you're doing it all.
I'm doing
so
it
you're
all,
the noun and the verb.
Yes.
So that pretty well defines it. And then we have to do that because I know, talking to so many in my business, assisting in the sharpening business, you find you really have to kind of, in a sense, define that.
Right. Some people like one part more than another. I like the piecing better than I do the quilting part myself, but I mean, I have to do it all to get the quilt to stay together.
Now we're getting down to the facts, because I know some will not iron, some will not piece, etc. So that's great. So great. Well, everyone has their favorite piece of work that they call their favorite. And sometimes we do surprise ourselves with when we start a project and it ends up so beautiful or outstanding and awesome. So can you identify and share with us, with the viewers, that one quilt maybe that has become your favorite, and that you've brought some photos that we'll show along with our conversation.
Well, I actually have two favorites, and I brought them here with me. This one on this side of me is called Celestial Crowns, And it was I entered it in the Paducah show. I heard you mention that we have a Missourian that did win a prize at Paducah.
Oh, excellent.
And I entered this in the Paducah show in 2005. And it was my first entry into Paducah, and I won a first place ribbon on it. So this is my pride and joy. Sometimes a quilt takes on a life of its own, and this one did. It started out as one thing, and it just kind of turned into something completely different from what I started with. And a lot of times quilts do that. They kind of give you a direction to go in.
And that's what we might inspire others with, too, other quilters, ladies and men, that you start a project, you don't know when it's going to, where it's going to go on its little trail of success, what have you. We'll take a good full shot of this piece, both pieces, in a few moments.
Okay.
You
want me to tell you about this other one?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
Please.
now this one I entered, a museum in Paducah, National Quilt Museum, has a contest every year called New Quilts from Old Favorites. And so they take a block, and this block is what's the show is about, and you enter a quilt in using that particular block. And this one was the New York Beauty block, and I entered this into the museum contest, and it came in 5th place. So this one I'm very proud of also.
So you have really 2 prize pieces here, and I know you have more. We'll talk about her website here in a few moments after the break, but her work speaks for itself for themselves, pardon me, as they do for many of our quilters. Again, it's the art of quilting that I witnessed, being an artist myself, and walking into quilt shows and seeing these fabulous pieces, using the same techniques of layout and perspective and color association, what have you. It's also in the quilt. And I've talked to ladies who basically, well, I just kind of throw it together and it's what happens, and not realizing what they've really done in the sense of the word of perspective and color association, what have you. So it's really nice. Well, I congratulate you also on your pieces and being recognized by the Paducah, Kentucky quilting show, etc. Well, we have to take a break, so hang on to your next thoughts. After the break, we'll continue with Miss Toby Lisko, who will join us with her experience and a window into her world of quilting as we continue and look more at the skills and the dedication that she offers. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
So my uncle calls and he says he's dizzy and he's losing his balance. I'm like, Unc, you want me to take you to a doctor? He's like, no, I'm gonna look up the symptoms. I said, your symptoms are you're dizzy and you're losing your balance. So he said, I can't get on the internet because my arm is numb. I said, well, use your good arm and dial 911. Stroke's no joke. If you or someone you love is showing symptoms of stroke, don't wait because it might be too late. Dial 911. Time lost is brain lost.
welcome back to Quilting Inside and Out. I'm your host, Rick J. As we turn back to Miss Toby Lisko, who is with us today. Toby is an instructor on Craftsy and I Quilt. Plus, she has written 2 helpful books to share with you on her skills and techniques. But first, I turn to Toby and welcome him back to the second portion. And researching Toby for the show, you kindly shared with me some of the reasons why you quilt. Can you share with us some of those reasons and what continues you to inspire you, should we say, to continue quilting?
Well, I find it so rewarding to design something and then see it come to life. And I have my own kind of technique where I like to fussy cut, meaning I cut certain parts of the fabric and put them together to create these designs that I create. And it's so interesting to see them come together and come to life. And that's really what keeps me going. And quilting isn't boring at all because everything's, you know, it's all so different. Every design is different, every fabric's different. So they all, even if you make the same quilt, you make it in different fabrics, it comes out different. So that's what keeps me going. I just really love the whole process itself.
Well, that's a new perspective on quilting. It comes to life. There's a life in every quilt.
Yes, yes.
In every art piece. There's, and we talk about that life that comes from within the artist. And basically, even if you're playing a violin, the artist brings out the life. Toby and other quilters bring the life to quilting and their finished product as it's developed. So that's a great terminology to use. Now, you spoke of Quilts of Valor Foundation, that you do work for them, like many do.
Yeah, I do. We meet once a month in Union, Missouri, and we work on quilts to give away to veterans. And we had our first ceremony last year in October, and then we will have a couple more ceremonies this year to give quilts to vets. It's very rewarding, especially since my husband's a vet. I know how much they need to be appreciated.
Yes, I spoke with you earlier about being also a Vietnam veteran in that area, 65 through 67. So that's great that the Quilt of Valor, as I mentioned before, receiving one last June 20th, 1917, means a lot to me. It still does, on my bed daily. Well, also the Quilt Guild. You're a member naturally of a Quilt Guild. You can, if you can, tell us a little bit about the activities when they meet, their projects, etc., if you can.
Okay, the Quilt Guild I belong to is in St. Clair, Missouri. It's called Peacemakers, and we meet once a month on the third Wednesday morning of the month. And we usually have a speaker. Sometimes it's somebody from our guild who shows off the quilts they've made. Sometimes we get somebody who comes out from a national teacher occasionally, and they'll might teach a class after guild. And we do certain projects for the community. We do quilts for kids who are displaced, and every year we do so many. We did pillowcases, and there was a big pillowcase push for, I don't remember what the thing was, but it was thousands of pillowcases, and so we do those kinds of things too for the community.
We just had a lady on the program interviewed a couple shows ago with the pillowcases for the children. Now, they meet monthly in St. Louis.
In St. Clair, yeah.
In St. Clair, St. Clair, yes. Okay, well, great. That's really commendable.
It's a camaraderie, you know. We're all meeting, and everybody's different levels. You know, there's some really very good quilters and some beginner quilters, and we just all share and talk, enjoy their company.
Well, you've written a couple books, and if you want to tell us about them and what you'd like, the content thereof, what you'd like to share with the viewer, what they can really get out of it.
Okay, well, my first book I wrote in 2008 2008, I think it was 2008, it was through Kansas City Star Publications. It's called St. Louis Stars. Since I'm from St. Louis, I thought it was appropriate to have my first book called St. Louis Stars. And it's basically an 8-point star that, like I was talking about, fussy cutting. So in the star, you fussy cut the little kite shape, and it creates different designs.
Excellent.
And so it was just kind of a fun book to put together. It has 9 quilts in here. They're all a little different, but they're all using the St. Louis Star block. And the second book I just published a couple years ago, this is through the AQS, it's called Kaleidostars, and it's similar. It also is fussy cut. You can see the little fussy cut pieces on the cover, and it's also an 8-point star. And I just like working with stars. I think they're fun to play with, and I love to play with fabric, and you let the fabric speak for the quilt. So the fabric is what creates the design, the different kinds of designs in the quilt. And then my iQuilt class is also called Kaleidostars, and that's based on my book.
I see.
And I design and have templates made to go with all my projects. They're acrylic templates, so it's easier to cut with those templates than to try and cut out your own.
I remember the kaleidoscopes, so I remember the designs in the kaleidoscopes as a young man. So I guess right away when I visited your website and I saw your designs, and then I caught the term as you've got on your latest, the Kaleidostars on your website. Currently, I said, oh yes, the kaleidoscope and the but that's an excellent design. You put them together so well. That's really awesome. And I see you have the tools developed that the viewers can also purchase, I guess.
Right, and I teach classes on this, so it's easier for the students to have the templates than to have to take the time to make them.
Super. Now, you instruct on Craftsy and iQuilt. Can you share with us, the viewers, the main topics, basically, that you discuss or instruct on at Craftsy and iQuilt?
Well, I mentioned the iQuilt class is based on my book. The Craftsy class is based on curved piecing, which is what these are. So there's 3 different quilts in the Craftsy class. One of them is the New York Beauty block, which is what this block is. The New York Beauty is named after the Statue of Liberty, the crown and the Statue of Liberty. That's why it's called New York Beauty. So that's why there's the spikes in it. So in the class, I show how to do foundation piecing, which is piecing with paper. On freezer paper, and then I show them how to do curves and an easy way to get curves done. So it's just kind of it starts off with a real simple design, and it gets a little more complicated. So there's 3 quilts that you learn to make in that class.
Oh, that's an excellent class to take part in. I do recognize the spikes from the crown now that you mention it. There's always a theory to every art piece, as we spoke before, so you can see the theory here that has gone into thought of the books and the actual quilt, putting them together. So it's really inspiring to just to view them here in front of me today. Well, can you give me or give the viewers the website addresses for the Craftsy and iQuilt, where they may pick those shows out and view?
Well, Craftsy is just www.craftsy.com.
Okay.
And the quilt class that I teach is called the Clever Curves.
I see.
And the iQuilt is just www.iquilt.com. So they're really easy to find. If you put my name in the search box, you'll find my classes in the search box.
Now we'll put that on the screen and edit it in, so they'll have that, viewer will have that to refer to and enter. Well, we always like to turn to an experienced quilter and a person of your background, not only in education, but also now you must have been really a great educational person and put a lot of dedication into that, because it shows in your artwork also. It's really awesome. So we like to, if we can, give inspiring words. What can you give a new quilter that would be an inspirational quote or what have you for a beginner, someone who needs a little boost maybe to carry them along the way?
Well, I always encourage, and I teach beginning classes, and I always encourage students to kind of do their own thing. I teach techniques, and I like people to go beyond that, just that technique, and kind of make their own thing so that it's personally theirs. And, you know, I have people tell me, well, I made a quilt, but I'm not really a quilter. And I said, well, if you made a quilt, you're a quilter. I said, if you can sew a 1/4-inch seam, you can sew a straight line, you can make a quilt. And so I try and encourage people to experiment and expand their skills and start with something simple and move on and just keep in, like I did. I just kept taking different classes so I could learn different skills in quilting. I'm still learning. I never stop learning.
So don't stop, just keep moving on.
Right.
And see what happens. Well, sometimes it's an outlet for people. We run into people that have bumps in their life, and they come back, and quilting is an avenue, a vehicle to smooth things out a little bit.
Well, that was true with me teaching special education.
Yes.
It wasn't something that helped me relax in the evening because it's a fairly stressful job.
I was trying to tie that in somewhat, somehow, that I knew there had to be some connection there between the initial work of the past and then...
There are a lot of quilters that are nurses and teachers.
Oh, I understand. I didn't know that. That's good information. I'll have to keep that in mind. Now, do you do your own quilting by hand or machine quilt?
It's done by machine. I have a long arm machine.
Oh, so you do have a long arm. That was a good question.
Yeah,
That's excellent. So she does her own long arm quilting also. Excellent. Well, let's see. Well, is there a private website address, email, phone number where your viewers may contact you for more information?
Sure. My website's called Gateway Quilts N, as in N, Stuff. The company's called Gateway Quilts and Stuff. Based on St. Louis, the Gateway Arch. That's why we called it Gateway Quilts. And they can reach me at my email, tlishko@yahoo.com. I'm on all of the social media pages, so they can find me on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest. And I post what I'm doing, and I have a newsletter and a blog, and so I'm just out there doing everything.
You've got it all the bases covered again. Yes, the website. Go to the website, and all the information is there, so I invite you to do that. And once again, that's that's gatewayquiltsnstuff.com. Well, Toby, we're unfortunately out of time. It has been my pleasure to have you as a guest here on JCTV, Quilting Inside and Out. Thanks for making it a learning and informational experience for us all.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, one cannot be involved in the world of quilting in mid-Missouri without being introduced to our next guest, at least by name anyway. Next year on Quilting Inside and Out, we meet Miss Josette Berry. Josette definitely must have quilting DNA. You can see it in her work. She has dedicated many years of her being on this earth to the art of quilting in some way or another. When we come back, we meet Josette, who will share her story with you. Stay with us.
Folks, why won't we go to the doctor? My uncle called, speech all slurred, complaining his arms numb. He called everyone. He even called my daughter Tiara, because she's got a year of nursing. Everyone thinks he needs to go to the doctor, including me. So he said, well, will you take me? I'm like, I'm on the road. He goes, I'll wait. Stroke's no joke. If you or someone you love have symptoms of stroke, don't wait. It may be too late. Dial 911. Time lost is brain loss.
Welcome back, everyone, to Quilting Inside and Out here at JCTV, sponsored by Rooster Creek Company out of Holmes Summit, Missouri. We come back to you here in the city of Jefferson City, Missouri, capital city of Missouri, at Quilting Inside and Out. And I turn now to our next guest, which is Miss Josette Berry of Osage Beach, Missouri, down around the Lake of the Ozarks, most of you are familiar with. Josette, welcome to Quilting Inside and Out.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
It's a pleasure having you here with us. We here at Quilting Inside and Out feel very fortunate to have you with us today and to have you share with us your window into a more detailed experience of your quilting life, shall we say. It's all started back, I understand, back in 2006, if my research and preparedness reveals. Can you share with us the origin and the highlights of your life that best describes Josette Berry?
Well, I was born in Los Angeles, California, and I lived there pretty much my entire life until about 10 years ago when I moved out here to Lake of the Ozarks. I was a paralegal for 25 years. That was my career, and I raised two sons, Andrew and Miles, and they still live out there in the Los Angeles area. I work now part-time at a local golf course. I'm an avid golfer. It's my other passion. And I say that I golf when I can, and when the weather doesn't permit that, then I quilt.
So you want to say a shout out to the two sons in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, sounds like you have an exciting life and two great hobbies, you might say.
They both keep me very busy.
That's excellent. Your work speaks well for it. As we see here on the table, we'll talk more about the quilt that Josette has brought in and others, and the inspiration behind it. Well, Josette, if I may call you by your first name respectfully.
Of course.
Can you share with us when and how you were first inspired to become a quilter, and also what inspires you to continue in this venture?
Well, I first started quilting about 12 years ago. My mother had passed away, and before she passed, she had started quilting. And so after she passed, in her things, I found a couple of quilts that she had started. And so I pulled all the stuff out of the bags and looked and found the patterns and realized that they were intended for two of my nephews, Scott and Jason. And so I thought, well, I know how to sew. I've sewed for years and years. I make curtains, I make clothes. I can certainly finish these. And I thought it would be really nice for my nephews to have that as a memory of their grandmother. Yes. So I sewed them up, and they didn't come out so great, but I managed to get them done. And fortunately, the process for finishing them was just yarn tie. So I was able to do that myself. I was able to figure out how to do the yarn tie, and there was instructions with it. And so that was the start of it. And then not too much longer after that was when I moved out here to Lake of the Ozarks, and I came in the winter time. And there's not a lot to do in the winter time when you're a golfer and you're no longer working. You know, when you work full time and raise a family, there is no downtime. Right. And so now here I am with not a whole lot of downtime. And I'd seen a notice in the local newspaper about a quilt demonstration that was going to be at the Camden County Museum. And so I thought, well, I'll go see that. I'll go check it out. And there was some women there doing demonstrations and talked about their quilt guild. And I didn't even know that quilt guilds existed. I'd never even heard of them. So they invited me to attend one of their meetings, which I did. And they were just very, very welcoming and friendly. And so I started going to the meetings, and we would have different lessons and speakers, and so that was where I learned to quilt more and understand what I was doing. There was one other quilt that my mother had started, which by attending these meetings and learning more, I did finally figure out how to finish it. So, and I have that with me today, which we'll show in a little bit.
So Mother was basically your inspiration, even though you had already lost her.
Yes.
On the earth, but she left something behind as a message, evidently, and you caught on real quick.
Yeah, and also the feeling that you get when you gift that quilt to somebody and what it means to them is very inspiring. It makes you feel really good.
Yes, I can identify. I speak often of the Quilt of Valor that I received a year ago, or last June, and it was one of the most inspiring moments. I came to the point I could even talk at the presentation, because it really reached me. First time being recognized for spending my time with the government.
Yes.
So we all understand the inspiration. That's what I try to get across on the program, that we're all inspired by these quilts and by quilters. And we all have a foundation. All the quilters have a foundation within their art piece or their art quilt of art of quilting. Well, that's great. What continues then you to keep on this trek?
It kind of becomes an addiction.
Yes.
It does. You see pictures in magazines, on Pinterest, or just when you're out and about and you see colors and designs and you think, oh, that could be a quilt.
Oh, yes.
Or I want to make that quilt, but I think I want to do it in different colors or whatever. Right. And or family occasions that are coming up, birthdays and graduations, new babies. There's always a reason to make a quilt. And so that kind of keeps me going. It's a lot of it is the joy of gifting them once they're completed and thinking about the person who it's intended for while you're making it, and thinking, oh, what color do they like? What style will they like? And
then the moment of presentation.
And then the moment of presentation,
really,
and they see it, and yes, it's very rewarding.
Especially a mother with a new baby.
Yes.
The mothers, I've seen it in my family where a sister makes a quilt, a new baby quilt. New baby, new quilt.
Yes.
And then the mother's and her response. Well, as a quilt maker, now we get into some facts here, as I say. How would you describe yourself? We talk of nouns and verbs, all the different, the nouns that we use in quilting, whether if you make any part of a quilt, you become a quilter. If you cut it out, you lay it out, you sew the fabric, you iron the pieces, but then when machine quilting or hand quilting for the design, they call themselves, in the verbal sense, a quilter. So how do you identify with the nouns in your respective order?
Well, I would say I'm a piecer and a quilter. I enjoy the piecing part of it. I love the process, picking out the fabric, going to the store and picking out all the different fabrics for the design, and then coming home and cutting them out and then assembling them. Some of my favorite quilts are ones with little bitty pieces, lots and lots of tiny pieces, scrap quilts, but just the whole process. And then also, I'm a quilter. I do have a mid-arm, a sit-down quilting machine. It's a smaller one. The big long arms, they're kind of,
intimidating at this point, maybe?
Well, at the time it was intimidating, and also, you need a lot of space for it.
Now, do you put your backing on and your?
Yes, so I do the backing.
So I do the up to the point of.
I do the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah,
She's
so
the
I
whole
do.
Enchilada.
That's
great.
And then the binding and all of that.
Work, and that's why I couldn't wait to get you on the show and find out where's this coming from. It's got to be some basis, some foundation, So that's great. Well, we all have our favorites that are favorites for us. That's some reason, for some reasoning. Can you share with us a couple of your favorite finished quilts and the story behind each?
Well, the one which I talked about earlier, the one that my mother, no, the one that my mother had started.
Oh, I see.
Well, she had started 3, the 2 for my nephews, and then there was a third one that I think it was just going to be for her, but it was all applique. And it was all these flowers and different types of techniques that included ruching and folding of fabric, that it was all incorporated into it. So I had to learn all of that also from her instructions that were from, I guess she was taking a class. So that one, and then my most recent one, that's one of my favorites that I've just finished recently, is one, I went on a trip to Scotland last summer. We went on a golf trip to Scotland, but of course I needed to visit some quilt shops while I was there. So I was going to be doing a block of the month. It was a Facebook group that was doing a block of the month, so I brought my fabric requirements with me and visited some quilt shops there in Scotland and got all fabric that was made there in Scotland. So not something that you could get here in the States.
Yes.
I wanted something that was going to be different and more representative of the area there. And so that's that one now, because it reminds me so much of our trip there and the landscape, and when we show the quilt later, it has applique houses, and so the fabric that I got for the houses was so that it would look like the houses there, because it's not like houses here. Their houses are hundreds of years old, and they're made out of stone and very weathered looking. And so I tried to recreate that. And also I appliqued little wool sheep into each of the houses, into the yards of each of the houses, because as you drive through the Highlands of Scotland, there's sheep that are just wandering all over the place. So you have to always drive slowly. And
what an interesting trip.
Yeah, so it was very interesting. So this is my remembrance of that.
Well, now you've brought pictures of that, those quilts and what have you. Plus we have one we'll talk about here in front of us. So we'll be able to view those as we're talking. So that's I'm looking forward to that. Well, Josette, we have to take a break. So stay with us. We'll be right back to learn more on the life and experience of quilter Josette Berry from Osage Beach, Missouri. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool, really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this, so why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately, because time lost is brain lost.
Welcome back. Please join me now for our final moments as we share the life of quilting with Josette Berry. Josette, in our chats before the taping of the show, you spoke of many reasons why you continue with your love of quilting. And you spoke of the Ozark Hills Quilt Guild of Osage Beach, Missouri. Can you share with us some of the projects that the Guild is dedicated to that you partake thereof?
Sure. Well, I'm the president, the current president of Ozark Hills Quilt Guild. And besides furthering the education and art of quilting, one of the main focuses of our guild is to make quilts that we donate to various charities throughout the lake area and through mid-Missouri. We find it to be a very important thing to help out our community. Each year, we make quilts for the family members that are the recipients for the Habitat for Humanity house in Camdenton. Each year, a house is dedicated and donated to a family. So we find out about the family members and make a quilt for each of the family members that we present when the house is dedicated. So we do that. We also make quilts that we just keep on hand to donate to different charities, different areas or different organizations in the lake area when they need a quilt for an auction item or for a raffle, and we donate for that. We recently donated one for a charity that was, they raised about $300 for just a small quilt. So that was pretty good.
Excellent. Now you spoke of Patriot Quilts Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about those folks? You made a presentation at a ceremony for them back in November?
Yeah, we wanted to start participating in the Quilt of Valor. As we looked into it more, we found that you make the quilts and send them off. And then that's kind of the last you hear about them. So we wanted to keep it a little closer to home in our own community. So we started making the Patriot quilts. And then through our members who knew of veterans that were family members or neighbors or other ones they knew in the community, and so they were nominated, and we selected 9 local veterans and had a presentation at our meeting this past November, and I brought along some pictures of that. And so we'll be showing those.
Now that's your program from the Quilt Guild?
Yes, that's
your own concept.
That's our own concept.
Your own inspiration to do your own thing, I guess we could say.
Yes, so we, each of our members has a hand in making those quilts. We put together packets. We pick out a quilt design, put together packets, and our members take them home. They assemble the blocks and then bring them back, and one of our or more of our members then will assemble the whole quilt top, and then it goes to one of our other ladies who do the long arm quilting, and they quilt them up.
So it's a team effort.
It is. It's a team effort.
Again, that's inspirational. To do something as a group and come out, even more so than an individual effort, you might say. When you bring a team together and you score, you know that's really
well, doing 8 to 10 quilts a year, it's quite the endeavor. So it does take a team to be able to pull that off.
Well, now the Ozark Hills Quilt Guild of Osage Beach, do you take new members, and do you have meetings?
We do.
Do you invite people?
We do.
Jury them in, or
our guild meets on the second Tuesday of each month. Our meetings are at 6:30 in the evening at the Church of Osage Hills, and that's in Osage Beach. I see. So our meetings are at 6:30. We have our little business meeting, and then we have some sort of program where we have a speaker or one of our members will teach a different technique, so that we're always furthering our education, or we'll have somebody come in and do a trunk show for us, or one of our members.
And a trunk show, how do you define a trunk show? Is that something out of the trunk that they're...
That's where when someone who's a quilter, they will bring in their collection of quilts.
Out of the trunk?
Out of the trunk, or like a hope chest kind of trunk, that kind of trunk, not the trunk of their car.
That's what I think, a hope chest. I know in families, 2 sisters, that each sister had their own little trunk that you started building as a young lady to use in the future years, whatever those years may bring to you.
Yes.
Well, super. Now you're a Quilt Guild, Ozark Hills Quilt Guild is coming up with a quilt show, I understand.
Yes, this is going to be our first quilt show.
First quilt show.
It's our first quilt show. We're very excited about it, and really excited about the opportunity to show off our quilts. So we've been working on them for a while, and some of them that we've kept, some of them we've gifted away that we're going to have to borrow back so that we can display them. And of course, it'll be open to the public. It'll be at the Community Christian Church in Camdenton on October 13th. It's a Saturday. And we'll have craft items there to sell also that we'll be making. We've been working hard on that too. The event is a fundraiser for us. So all of the proceeds that we get from the sale of those craft items will go towards purchasing the fabric and batting and all the other supplies that we need for future charity quilts and the Patriot quilts that we make. And then this quilt here, this one is one that was made by our guild a while back. It was what was called a paint chip challenge. And so everybody got a paint chip, and then they had to make a block with the color of their paint chip.
I see, and different designs.
And different designs, so they picked their design and pattern, and then they were all brought back in and assembled, and then this was quilted by one of our members.
Again, right in front of me, you see the total effort by the Quilt Guild coming together to develop this beautiful quilt with all the different patterns and a color perspective. Oh, it's really nice. You'll see it here in a moment.
Yeah, and so this one will be raffled at the quilt show. So we'll be around the community selling tickets from now until then, plus at the quilt show.
Now, will you have vendors there?
No, we won't have vendors. It's in conjunction with the Lake Area Fiber Arts Network.
Oh, I see.
So they'll be on one side of the church, we'll be on the other side of the church. So
is that involved with Bill Wood's gallery there? I know he's the president of the art club, I guess, in that area.
Possibly,
I thought maybe that was tied up. Didn't mean to put you on the spot
That's
there,
okay.
but,
I don't know.
I thought maybe he's involved in so many things. I thought maybe as an artist, maybe he would be there also. Well, would you like to share with us an email, website, telephone number where people can reach you to find out more about the Quilt Guild? Any questions they have on your design, your overall designs, what have you? Would you like to share?
Sure. Well, they can contact me through my email. Our guild doesn't have a website, but they can contact me through my email, and it's Josette_28@yahoo.com.
Okay, and we'll show that on the screen, edited in so we can't miss it, make sure.
And of course, they can always come to a meeting. We always welcome just guests who want to stop in and see what we're all about.
Well, there's not that many quilt guilds in the Osage Beach, Lake Ozark area, I don't believe, anyway.
There's a few.
There's a few.
There's a few. There's a couple other small guilds, but there's a few.
But they're all fun if you.
They are fun.
Put them all on a list and visit each one each week. You really come up with a great venue, and a lot of different techniques to be learned, etc. Well, Josette, in closing, what inspiring words would you give a beginner or someone who needs a little bit of a boost or an uplift at some point in their life? Some beginners just need inspiration to continue on. Your heartfelt, is there any time you hit a lull? Of course, you're so involved, but maybe you hit a lull at times. You just need someone to give you a boost and inspiration to go on.
Well, I would say that quilting is a creative outlet. It allows you to be as creative as you want to be. You don't have to be very artistic or very creative, or you can be. There's lots of books and patterns and Pinterest and YouTube and so many different things to learn to quilt, to gain inspiration and all the various aspects of quilting. And so you can do as much or as little as you want. You can do simple big block quilts, and then there's all the very intricate types of quilts also. And so it just kind of allows you to do whatever you want to do. A lot of people say, oh, I'm just not that good. I'm not that good at it. But you don't have to be good. You just have to really enjoy what you're doing. And as long as you're enjoying it, then that's what's important. And then as you gift those quilts, the people that you give them to, they're going to see the effort that you put into it and the love that's behind it. And they're not going to see that your seams don't match up perfectly or that your stitches aren't exactly even. So,
well, as Quilting Inside and Out tries to bring the world of quilting together. Through the United States, we have interested people looking at the YouTube shows and getting back to me. They're from all over the United States, and that's the world of quilting now. Not only the United States, but if you do look at Paducah, Kentucky, the organization there, it's worldwide. So it is a national and international love that we all share. I've done some quilting myself in the family, and a couple of my own. So it's one of those loves. And again, I hit the point again that creativeness is one thing. Artistic is something else. But sometimes when you be creative, it becomes artistic. When you reach for the artistic level, you're actually being creative, so they kind of go together. So I hope that everyone will be inspired by the words that Josette has shared with us today. And that's what we're all about here at Quilting Inside and Out. Well, Josette, JCTV's Quilting Inside and Out, Rooster Creek Company, and me, Rick J., your host. I want to thank you once more for being our guest and for your very informative content on how one can make a fulfilling life of quilting memories and experiences. So thank you for once again being with us.
well, thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, I enjoyed it tremendously.
Thanks.
Well, I always try to give you the scoop on the world of quilting. The Rooster Creek Company, Rooster Creek Quilt Show in Holt Summit, Missouri, will be hosting their show July 12th, 13th, and 14th. That's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the year of this year, 2018. The Ozark Peacemakers of Springfield, Missouri have asked me to continue to let you be informed for the upcoming 2018 Quilt Show. That's an enormous big show. Secondhand, you might say, to Paducah show. That's on September 29th and 30th of 2018. So check their website actually for more information, more details, but put it on your calendar, Springfield, Missouri. Cape Girardeau will host their 2018 Quilt Show September 29th and 30th. And don't forget the Ozark Hills Quilting Guild Quilt Show that Josette represents. That's October 13th, their first show. So give them a welcoming to the quilt show world, if you will, October 13th, 2018 at the Community Christian Church, Camdenton, Missouri. So please, if you have any information that you'd like me to share within the scoop on the quilting world, call me at 573-645-4507. And we'll promote it right here on Quilting Inside and Out. We are dedicated in the effort to get the scoop out to you viewers here on Quilting Inside and Out. Thank you, JCTV producer Gloria Enlow and JCTV Access staff and crew. I thank you also our viewers for joining us here on JCTV and being part of the show. Look for more Quilting Inside and Out, where you get the scoop on the world of quilting. It's all right here on JCTV. And don't forget YouTube. I'm Rick J. saying thank you again. See you next time.
Rooster Creek Quilting in Holt Summit, Missouri is your one-stop shop for all your quilting needs and more. Their specialties include great customer rapport to assist you with finding that perfect fabric, notion, pattern, pre-cuts, and embroidery supplies. Rooster Creek also offers professional long-arm quilting services and classes and much more. Don't wait for the rooster to crow. Visit Rooster Creek Quilting at Holt Summit Plaza, Holt Summit, Missouri. It's a great place to go for all your quilting needs.